Our summertime tour of Tasmania continues. So far we've seen what goes into beer and toured a working dope farm. Now it's time to find out if the apple aisle really does live up to its name. Our tour of Tasmania, the map of Tasmania continues. You've been touring around on this monstrosity of a thing and we've turned up south of Hobart to a place called Huonville, which back in the day was kind of the epicentre for apples.
Yep, and it's what gave Tasmania the name the Apple Isle,
Correct.
right where we are.
Yep.
But as the apple industry dropped off,
Yes.
cherries took its place.
Yes.
And we're going to learn about the story of why that happened and how it happened. And now we're standing in Howard Hansen's cherry orchard, one of the first cherry orchards in Tasmania.
Yes.
And it's fantastic.
Did you know that Howard Hansen also rides motorbikes?
I've heard something of the sort,
Right.
and it may be one of the reasons why I
Yes.
picked this farm to
Yes.
come to.
You also
I need
used
an
to-
ally.
You also used to work here.
Well, during high school, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
over the summer holidays,
You
I
worked
would
here at
come.
Hansen's orchard.
I would come and sort cherries
Yes.
by hand. And as we're going to see now, it's all done by robots.
Yes.
So
Well,
that's
no,
a pretty cool
that's
story.
not actually true.
Oh, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, and they're looking.
Yeah. But
back
then
in the-
it was purely done by hands. People pouring lugs on belts, picking cherries out,
Yes.
looking for the first, looking for the seconds, chucking out the rotten ones. And now they've got cameras sorting them all. So it's amazing.
And who would have thought that all these years later you'd be back here
Exactly.
riding this?
I certainly didn't. But
No.
I mean, I think it's a pretty good thing, don't you?
Yeah, no, it's good. Well, can I flood it somehow? Flood it. What is this button?
You'll come round. You'll see.
This is Howard Hansen, a fourth-generation orchardist whose family has grown apples in Tasmania for more than a century, and over that time, things certainly have changed.
My great-grandfather Carl Hansen was from Norway and he came to Tasmania, got granted his first piece of land on the Tasman Peninsula in 1887 and he started planting apples back then. So he spent his whole lifetime as an apple grower, and then he had 6 sons who were all apple growers. One of those was my grandfather Rupert. But it was pretty hard for Rupert to expand on the Tasman Peninsula because every block he wanted to buy, he was competing against one of his brothers. So he came here to the Huon in 1944 and bought an existing apple orchard. So he spent the rest of his career here. My father, who's 84, that still comes to work every day, he came here when he was 5 years of age, so he's lived here for 79 years, spent his whole lifetime growing apples here. But back when Carl started, there were 2,000 apple growers in Tasmania, and Tasmania was known then as the Apple Isle, and we were counter-seasonally supplying apples to the Northern Hemisphere. But with the advent of CA storage technology, everyone in the world can keep apples, and we don't need to send apples from Tasmania to the Northern Hemisphere anymore. So that industry's really disappeared. And so from when my father started, there were 2,000 growers. By the time I started, there was only 200 growers left. And today there's really only 20 commercial apple orchards.
So basically, Tassie can't really call itself the Apple Isle anymore, and given growing apples didn't seem like the most stable future for young Howard, he turned his attention to something else.
So in my last year of university, I was looking for a counter-seasonal supply opportunity where we've got another horticultural product that we can supply into the Northern Hemisphere counter-seasonally. So that was cherries. They gave me 95% for that research project, so I thought that must be worth a crack. So in 1995 we planted 400 cherry trees and planted a few cherry trees every year since, so that it's now the main part of our business, and we export cherries to about 20 different countries during January and February.
As it turns out, cherries are pretty hard to grow and quite temperamental, so this was a big gamble.
The first challenge to grow good quality cherries is the weather, and being Tasmania, well, the weather here can be somewhat inclement. Howard, it's a typical summer Tasmanian day. It's bloody raining in January, and ordinarily, as a cherry grower, that would spell bad news. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. And we always knew that'd be the case. We have 750 mil of rainfall each year in Tasmania, and we get 50 mil in December, 50 mil in January. And so even when I did my research project back in 1994, we thought that was going to be enough to ruin our season. We thought it'd ruin 2 years out of every 8. We'd get no cherries at all.
Is that right? So what happens when it rains?
Well, what happens is, the tree gets wet, the fruit gets wet, and because there's such osmotic potential, because there's a high sugar content inside the cherry, the pure water on the outside is attracted to that high sugar and will suck the water in through the skin. Also, the roots will get wet, and so there's more moisture coming up through the roots and in through the stem. So the cherry's literally like a balloon, and we're blowing more and more water in through the straw, and it'll cause it to split. So we didn't lose a crop until about 2014, and we didn't pick a cherry here in the Huon. By that stage, cherries had become a pretty important part of our business, and we had a trip to Europe at that stage and found this rain covering system, and we've since done 100% of our production. So this roof that you can see overhead, it's a series of flaps. Well, it's got a bird net underneath. It's joined together here in the middle with a zip, so it keeps the birds out. But these flaps concertina over each other, so you can see, even though it's raining, the moisture's all coming to the middle of the row. We've got the rows mounded up, so this moisture will run down, and we'll keep the tree dry and we'll keep the root zone dry. And so that'll mean we'll still pick and pack all of these cherries.
And the cherries are loving it.
The nets cost lots of money, but now protected from the weather, Howard's cherry business is able to control growing conditions to get the best outcome. Picking season is short, and this delicate process is all done by hand.
It's good, it's nice being outside, and it's tough work, it's definitely hard work. The first day especially is really hard, but it's definitely getting easier as the days go on. Just the body needs a little bit of adjusting.
It's entertaining, like picking the cherries, being outside here with so many people. I think it's a really nice activity.
Once picked, the cherries are taken into Howard's cherry shed, much like they were back in the day when Oscar had just got out of nappies and had a part-time job here, sorting the fruit by hand. Although it's fair to say things are a little bit different these days.
Right, Howard, we've got a robot behind us. I've been here about 15 years ago when I used to do some hand sorting on my summer holidays from school. It's a little different now. What can you tell me about what's going on? This is amazing.
So this robot's one that we had built in Germany. So we'll bring in a stack of 6 bins out of the cool store. The robot will take the top bin off the stack. He'll gently tip it in the water, so he'll let the water fill into the bin. Then he'll rotate. He'll go do another turn, and then he'll lift up out of the water, let the bin drain, and then restack the empty bin and go and grab another full one.
Yeah, wow.
So at the minute, each one of those bins is about 200 kilos, and at the moment we're doing a bin about every minute.
Yeah.
We can do up to 85, 90 bins an hour.
Yeah, wow.
So that's about as quick as he can go. Compared to when we're in lugs, that robot's probably saved 20 people.
Yeah, wow. That's impressive.
Once the cherries are unpacked, they enter a very complex sorting process. Every cherry has to be inspected for blemishes and defects, and this is where the cherry sorting machine comes into its own and uses cameras and AI.
The fruit's coming up the elevator, divided over the 2 machines. At the start here, we've got 2 small fruit and debris eliminators. So we float off the leaves, we take away the small fruit, then we're loading onto the sizer. So this flutters to try and even the flow over the 2 machines. So we've got 2 chassis, each that are 14 lanes, so there's 28 lanes in total. And each lane is taking 35 rollers per second. So 980 rollers a second going under the camera box. This vibrating tray is trying to get them all in lines and then you'll see they're going slow and they're getting faster and faster and faster. We're just trying to separate them because when we put them under the camera box, we want to go into the camera box like that and get a shot of the nose. We don't want a cherry in the cup behind because it prevents us from seeing the nose. And when we rotate them, we don't want the stem leaning over the top of another one. So we want some space around them. At the minute we're processing about 12 tonnes an hour, which is about 300 cherries a second or a little bit more. We're taking 36 images of every cherry, so that's a little bit over 10,000 images every second that we're processing. So these two cabinets here are full of computers making all the decisions, and the next two cabinets are full of cameras. So every cherry has 9 cameras looking at it. And so 9 cameras multiplied by 28 lanes.
What are they looking for? What are they taking?
Looking for defects, looking for problems, grading for colour, firmness, and working out where that cherry's got to go so it's with other cherries of the same characteristic.
There's even a live scoreboard, if you like, to keep track of where things are going.
On the wall here you can see the dashboard, so that's saying that at the moment there's about 4.8% third grade rubbish. Everything else is being packed. These are peaking on a 28mm, and the one on the right hand side is telling me what customers they're going to. So the green one's 43%. This is quite a small line. 43% are staying in Australia, going to the supermarkets. 43% are going into our 2 kilo gift box, and the others are a few other brands.
And that's live. That's being updated live, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, updated every 6 seconds.
Absolutely incredible.
300 cherries a second.
The rest of these screens are basically telling us what's going on, where the fruit's going. We're graphing the size, we're graphing how much fruit's going down each lane, because we don't want some lanes being really busy and other ones being underutilised. We want to spread the fruit out evenly over the whole lot. And then the rest of the screens are basically the quality of the way we're grading.
What do you reckon your great-granddad or your granddad would have thought about this?
Ultimately, I reckon he'd be just happy that we're still in the fruit business. So, and really, if I think about our family's catch cry is adapt, improvise and overcome. Nothing stays the same, and if we were still growing apples, well, like my grandfather was, we would have been out of business with the other 1,980 apple growers that have gone out of business. So we've had to keep changing and find something that's got some value that people appreciate and will pay us enough to keep us in business. So now it's cherries, but who knows, my kids and grandkids might be doing something different.
The whole system needs cold water to run. The water keeps the cherries fresh and moving through the process until they can be packed. Beneath the shed is like walking into the inner workings of Wet and Wild.
This is where all the cold comes out of, so you've got 3 separate pools of water. So one pool that's just looking after the tipping tank, one pool that's looking after the small fruit eliminators, but everything, all the exits in the sizer and all the inline hydrocoolers are coming out of this one. You'll see the size of the 3 suction lines. That'll give you a bit of an idea for the amount of water that's being moved. So there's 160,000 litres of water here that never gets above 0.5 of a degree, and we're taking a tonne of water, or 1,000 litres a second, out of here into the plant, showers through the fruit once and then floods back to here. All the water for the facility's coming off the roof. We've got a 1 million litre rainwater tank out here that we catch the water to use through the plant. This water will keep going around all year, so it's being filtered and chlorinated to keep it clean and sanitised. And then all the power we're using on the site's coming off the roof as well. So we've got 1.5 megawatts of solar power capacity. The most we use is about 750, and we've got the rest to export into the network.
This all reminds me of the inner workings of Wet and Wild or something like that.
If you'd like to hop in, Andrew, go for it.
Cherry water slide.
I don't know how long you'll last in 0.5 of a degree.
Ah, that's the difference. Right.
It might.
Oh, nice bath. You're into ice bath,
Yeah, well,
don't you?
that's all the rage these days, huh? You adventure like Ryan, you go in there and bloody take the cold plunge.
Yeah, take your suit off.
I don't know about the sanitisation, but otherwise I'd offer you welcome to derobe and hop in if you like.
There'll be a major quality issue if Andrew jumped in, I reckon.
I reckon it'll be a confidence issue too when he gets out after 0 degrees.
Yeah, there should be missing, I reckon. A few bits missing.
The whole process, which lasts only a few months each year, is continuing to evolve. Everything in the chain has its place, and if it can be improved on, it will be.
This machine's one we've had built here in the Huon Valley by a local engineer. This machine's making a box on each side, and we're actually doing about 60 cartons a minute at the minute. So 2 years ago, last year even, we probably would have needed 20 people to be folding these boxes up.
Wow.
And it's such a simple machine. You see the one electronic motor, one speed controller, this pendulum in the middle going back and forward. See up the top, there's a little air valve that when it hits the nylon block, it puts those cups into suction, and when it hits the other one, it lets it go. So we're making one at each end, but completely mechanical, and
It's designed and made here.
Beautiful bit of gear.
That's
designed and made here in the Huon Valley.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You might think more machines, more robots, more AI is about reducing the workforce, which could seem a bit harsh, but as Howard explains, there's more to it than that.
You might think, we put in some robots, a few people miss out on work. But what it does is it makes us competitive. The biggest cherry producer in the Southern Hemisphere is Chile. They're producing 500,000 tonnes of cherries, when Tasmania produces about 6,000 tonnes. And the wage rate for a 10-hour day is what we have to pay for an hour. So for me to compete internationally, I've got to compete against Chile. So I've got to save every bit of labour we can and make ourselves as efficient as possible so we can compete internationally.
The logistics is just mind-blowing to me. Within 48 hours of the cherry being picked carefully by hand from the tree here in the Huon, they are on shelves and in markets around Asia, not to mention around the rest of Australia and indeed Tasmania through your local IGA.
Yeah, I mean, look, no one likes food waste, Hardy. No one likes seeing food wasted at any point.
Particularly me, Oscar.
Yeah, well, clearly, I wasn't going to say it, but there you go. In the fresh food game, shelf life is everything. You want to maximise your shelf life by keeping them cool, getting them processed as quickly as possible, not having anything lying around in the field, in the centre, on the trucks, on the planes, or at the other end. And they're just seeing this process of them being picked off the tree and out the door in a package within 24 hours or less, and then out into the world is pretty amazing.
And to be able to do it, and all the cost and investment that goes with it, you know that they're producing a premium product, because otherwise people wouldn't pay and all this wouldn't stack up. Our very quick tour of Howard's cherry shed had reached a conclusion. It'll be good to go back when it's not so hectic to learn more about growing this very valuable fruit. But now it's time to look at the next thing on our Tassie tour, spuds.
Mum and Dad have been growing potatoes for 35 years. They've kind of had to diversify as things change. So we now have a distillery as well, which is a bit of the fun side, we call it.
I didn't know potatoes could be so exciting.
So on the nose is completely different to how it tastes.
I love potatoes.
Yeah,
I like hot chips.
Cheers.
Cheers to your bright future.